Me today, running for mayor of East Peoria is John Kahl. Thank you so much for being here today.
And thank you for having me.
Now, you have been serving within the city already, so can you tell people a little bit about who you are and then also why you're choosing to run for mayor this year?
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to talk to you about this. John Kahl, native of East Peoria, grew up there, went off and served 6 years on active duty in the Marine Corps. I'm a Gulf War veteran. Opted to move back here, join the workforce, settle down and have a family, and have a great passion for East Peoria. Not just a great place to do business, great place to raise a family. So, you know, I've been involved in our community for a number of years through nonprofits. I've served on the Human Relations Commission prior to being elected a commissioner, a city commissioner. And quite honestly, we have some stark differences in philosophy heading into this race, and I've always had the citizens as my top priority during my term on the council. And East Peoria, as you know, is focused a lot on commercial development, which is great for the community. Comes with a price, and now I think the priorities need to shift back towards quality of life.
Okay, and you know, one of the big conversations within all of this, Dave Mingus has been the mayor there for 12 years, at least as long as my tenure has been there. He's been supplanted as the leader of East Peoria, and he's done a lot of things. You talked about that commercial development.
Sure.
Even within the downtown area where you got the Target, you now have the Bass Pro, you have that entire area that's been completely redeveloped in the last 10 years. For you, if you were to become mayor, what would be your focus? How would you be able to build upon where East Peoria has been able to kind of come within the last several years?
Sure. You know, I mean, I've raised the alarm bell about the debt load that was incurred on behalf of the city to bring that development. Now that it's here, we have to be sure that it's successful. There are areas of opportunity yet to build out. And my personal opinion, and I've said this for the last 4 years, and as mayor, I will proactively seek it, we need residential components, entertainment, and mixed use. Not just what everybody else has. We need something a little bit different. To do that, there's basic economic tools, both private and public, that can be utilized. And I think it's important, you know, the city, I kind of view it, we built out the downtown area, and then we've just allowed it to kind of be stagnant. It's time to proactively go out and continue that growth. It's important economically to the city.
You mentioned that there are some stark contrasts between you and then also your opponent. Both of you commissioners, Tim Jeffers, John Kahl, both of you are already serving within the city. What would you say those contrasts are between your styles and what you want to prioritize?
Sure. Tim and I, you know, and it's all out of respect. Obviously, you know, everyone's got their own opinion on how they conduct their business, but this isn't just the way we operate. It should be based on, you know, the public. You know, I look at tax dollars as though that's not my money. I live within my means, and one would expect that a government would do the same. We have different philosophies in that I'm fiscally conservative, very fiscally conservative, and I think we've made some decisions that weren't necessarily fiscally sound. In other words, the taxpayers carry the bulk of the risk versus the developers. And so over the course of the next 7 years, it's vitally important that we make fiscally sound decisions. You know, the city's going to have a tight budget. It's just a matter of fact with the debt obligations. So what we do moving forward, we need to do so in a positive direction, but be fiscally sound. He likes to tax and borrow money, and I just don't agree with that.
Well, let's talk about those fiscal obligations. Pension is the big elephant in the room for every municipality, local municipality. What's your approach, your idea on addressing pension? Because at some point, cities are going to have to really pay up on that and be at a place. What is it? Is it what's the percentage that cities have to be?
It's 90% by 2040.
So at some point that's going to have to happen. So what's the plan to getting East Peoria to a place where they are able to do that?
Well, East Peoria is not unique in that that's a challenge that all municipalities face currently in Illinois, unfortunately. as it stands now, for example, our property tax that the city recoups from the taxpayers is about 10% of our overall budget. And out of that 10%, almost 90% goes directly to pensions. And that's going to continue to increase unless the state steps up to the plate and offers some type of reform or relief. The trajectories we're on now are unsustainable, and I think that's for every municipality, quite honestly. So I think it would behoove all city leaders to lean on the state officials to try to offer some type of relief and take a look at that, because as it stands now, it's not doable. East Peoria is making it, but to do that, you have to understand property taxes, which basic city services used to be paid for out of that. Unfortunately, now that's going to pensions, so each municipality has to get creative in its way of paying for additional services. But it's a huge problem, and I think it's going to take a collective effort to make some necessary changes.
How would you describe your leadership style for those who are unfamiliar with, how you give direction? How would you describe your leadership style if you were to be elected and in charge down there at the city? Sure.
I lead by example. I don't ask people to do something I'm not willing to do myself, and that was instilled in me actually through my upbringing. I had wonderful parents that raised eight kids all in the same manner. My experience in the Marine Corps, no different. That's something the Marine Corps preaches, and that's something I've lived by. I think it's really important. We got some great department heads in the city of East Peoria, and I think it's important to, with that leadership by example, allowing people to do their jobs.
Okay. Well, kind of one of my last questions I wanted to ask you was your kind of final pitch for people. Why do you believe you would be the best person to serve in the role as mayor of East Peoria?
Sure. Well, I think my record speaks for itself, and that I've always placed the citizens as my top priority. Do my homework. I don't just make decisions every 2 weeks at a council meeting. There's a lot of effort that goes in behind that. To me, public servitude is more than just saying you serve on a council. You have to be engaged in the community. You have to listen to their concerns. You have to address their concerns. And I think to move East Peoria in a positive direction, there needs to be a change of mindset. And it goes back into the quality of life and what the priorities are. And to me, that's going to take effective leadership. You mentioned Mayor Mingus. He's done a great job as mayor. He was city commissioner prior to that. Big shoes to fill there. But at the end of the day, I think this is an opportunity to bring in, we're going to have at least guaranteed 3 new people on that council. So get a fresh perspective, get everybody on the same page, and I think the priorities need to shift back towards the quality of life, infrastructure. Everyone's got that set of challenges. So, you need to prioritize based on wants, not necessarily needs, and the needs of the community should always come first.
Well, before we go then, you talked about infrastructure. So where would you kind of place where the city's infrastructure is right now, and what are the priorities that need to be addressed there?
Streets are number one. And, we talked about some differences between the 2 candidates. There's a lot of speak about a roundabout in East Peoria. That's a $1.22 million project that's on the wish list. It's not a need of the community. I would much rather spend those funds on our current existing roads. The conditions of our roads are really poor in East Peoria, and for a number of years we just have not appropriated the amount of funds necessary to maintain them. So that goes into my priorities, and I think it needs to shift. And you have to take a look at your wants versus needs and start spending money where it needs to go.
All right. Yeah. Well, John Kahl, running for mayor of East Peoria,
Sir.
best of luck to you,
Thank
and
you.
We'll see what happens on April 2nd.